What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and it's time to talk artifacts in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. There are 6, so this may be a long video. Some of them, especially the last one, has a lot of stuff to go through. And I thought, just because the other 2 magic item videos were pretty lengthy in their own right, that artifacts deserve their own separate video. And more often than not, I feel like artifacts are more of a framing for a campaign, less than something that you're just going to immediately get access to. Whether they're a goal of something you need to seek out because, it's either to stop the bad guys from getting it, to use it to beat the bad guys when they have their thing, or it's like some legendary, artifact of legend that you're seeking because you're treasure hunters, whatever. That's the case with that. Before we dive into that, though, I did just want to say, if you like what I do here at Nerd Immersion, and you haven't subscribed to the channel, maybe consider subscribing. My birthday is in July, and I was shooting for 25K by my birthday this past July. Now I think maybe 100K. We could put that as a goal, 100K by my birthday in July. That'd be pretty sweet. And really only you have the power to help me get there. So anyway, let's dive in over here. So I pulled it up. Rather than sifting through it, I just sorted in D&D Beyond artifacts from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Thought we could look at it that way. So first up here, we're going to open up the full page, which is Baba Yaga's Mortar and Pestle. You can see her here in it. And obviously, these are all artifacts. They're all going to require attunement, and then they all have a list of things. I'm not really going to go through the minor and major beneficial and detrimental properties. That's something that's contained in the Dungeon Master's Guide that's been around since the DMG has existed. They're tables you roll on. Though I would like to say I would love to see that get expanded. Either get a new version, extend the length of them. Wizards of the Coast has no problem using... There's actually, I was going to say using weird dice, but a lot of those are ranges, right? Like 1 to 15 is something. We could really expand that list and make it much smaller, although I think the thought process is, with those properties, these ones are much more common, so they're more accessible. But we've had the game for almost, 6 years, or maybe I think actually 6 years, maybe even more than that. So it would be nice to expand that list to give us more options for it. Having played in a campaign where we got 2 artifacts towards the end, one of them being one of the ones in this book, everybody got pretty similar stuff when they rolled. Anyway, these are the signature tools of Baba Yaga. They're 2, they basically count, I think they count as 1. Baba Yaga's Mortar and Pestle. These signature tools are a single artifact for the purposes of attunement. Should they become separated, the Pestle appears next to the Mortar at the next one. So they have these 2 minor beneficial properties, 1 major beneficial property, and 1 minor detrimental property. And then we have the properties of the Mortar. Let's see. It is a tiny wooden bowl. However, it increases to accommodate anything placed inside if there's enough space up to large size. The Pestle is a 6-inch long wooden tool. Once during your turn while you're holding the Pestle, you can extend it into a quarterstaff or shrink it back to a pestle. As a quarterstaff, it is a +3 quarterstaff with 12 charges. If you hit somebody with a melee attack, and you can expend up to 3 charges, dealing an extra d8 force damage for each charge spent. They come back daily at dawn. That's when you hit, so you can use it to possibly double the damage even further if you crit. I think that's basically the equivalency of a staff of striking. Then we have perfect tools here. While you're holding them, you can use your action to say the name of any non-magical plant, mineral, or fluid, worth less than 10 GP. The mortar fills with it. Once you use this action, you can't use it until you finish a short or long rest. You can also use the artifact as an herbalism, or alchemist supplies, brewer supplies, cook's utensils, an herbalism kit, and poisoner's kit. You have advantage on any check made with those tools. Primal parts here as an action. While the pestle and mortar are within 5 feet of you, you can command the pestle to grind. For the next minute or until you use your action to command it to stop, it moves on its own, grinding the contents of the mortar into a mush or fine powder. At the start of each of your turn, whatever is inside the mortar takes 4d10 force damage. If this reduces the target's hit points to 0, the target is reduced to powder, pulp, or paste as appropriate. Only magic items are unaffected. If you wish, when the pestle stops, you can have the mortar separate its contents, like Contents like powdered bone, crushed herbs, pulped organs into separate piles. Wow, that's really dark. Traverse the night. If you're holding the pestle while you are inside the mortar, you can use your action to verbally command it to travel to a specific place or creature. You don't need to know where your destination is, but it must be a specific destination, not just the nearest river or Red Dragon's lair. If the stated destination is within 1,000 miles of you, it lifts into the air and vanishes. You and any creatures in the mortar travel through a dreamlike scene or dreamlike sky with hazy reflections of the world passing below. Creatures might see images of you streaking through the night between your point of origin and destination. You arrive within 1 hour or later. If it's at night, it's 1 minute later. This gives me very much bed knobs and broomsticks vibe when they're traveling on the bed. Bones know their home. When you command the mortar to travel, you can instead throw out the dust or paste of something ground by the mortar and name a location on a different plane of existence or a different world on the material plane, meaning like, Eberron versus Faerun. If that material came from a creature native to the plane, to the named plane or world, the mortar travels through an empty night sky to an unoccupied space at the destination, arriving within a minute. And then they are destroyed if they are crushed underfoot by the dancing hut of Baba Yaga or by Baba Yaga herself. I think the ultimate question for that is, how did you manage to get your hands on it in the first place? All right, then we have the Crook of Rao. I think that's how you pronounce it. Kind of looks like a shepherd's crook here. Let's see. It was rediscovered and leveraged against the rising power of the Witch Queen Iggwilv. She was defeated. Iggwilv managed to damage the crook during the battle, infecting it with an insidious curse and the potential for future victory. In the aftermath, the crook was lost again. It gives you random properties, as most artifacts do. 2 minor beneficial, 1 major beneficial, 1 minor detrimental. It has 6 charges and can use charges to cast the following spells with a save DC of 18. Or of Life for 2, or of Purity for 2, Banishment for 1, Beacon of Hope for 1, and Mass Cure Wounds for 3. It gets a D6 back daily at dawn. While you are attuned to the crook, you can spend 10 minutes to banish all but the mightiest fiends within 1 mile of you. Any fiend with a challenge rating of 19 or higher is unaffected. Each banished fiend is sent back to its home plane and can't return to the plane the Crook of Rao banished it from for 100 years. This could be an interesting concept to add as something into like an Out of the Abyss campaign to sort of make it new and fresh as a means to try to banish most of the demons. And obviously it wouldn't work on the demon lords, but it's a concept. Or maybe the concept of it is you need to find a way to fix it so that you can use it to banish the demon lords. Whenever the Crook of Rao's absolute banishment property is used, or when its last charge is expended, roll on the extraplanar reversal table. Any creatures conjured as a result of the effect appear in a random unoccupied space within 60 feet and are not under your control. It's sort of like a wild magic effect. It's a percentile based. We have a portal to a random plane opens and closes after 5 minutes. 2d4 imps and 2d4 quasits appear. A d8 succubi/incubi appear. A d10 Barb Devils and a d10 Vrox appear. An Arcanoloth, a Night Hag, and a Rakshasa appear. An Ice Devil and 1 Marilith appear. A Balor and a Pit Fiend appear. Oof, that's rough. At the DM's discretion, a portal opens into the presence of an Archdevil or Archdemon instead, a Demon Lord instead. It closes after 5 minutes. Or on a 91 to 100, you get inflicted with Iggwilv's Curse. When it's used against Iggwilv, she damaged it. Over the years, the curse is spread within the Crook, threatening to violently pervert its ancient magic. If this occurs, the Crook of Rao, as is currently known, is destroyed. Its magical matrix inverting and exploding into a 50-foot diameter portal. The portal functions as a permanent gate spell cast by Iggwilv. The gate then, once per round on initiative count 20, audibly speaks a fiend's name in Iggwilv's voice, doing so until the gate calls on every fiend ever banished by the Crook of Rao. If the fiend still exists, it's drawn through the gate. The process takes 18 years to complete, at the end of which the gate becomes a permanent portal to Pazunia, the first layer of the Abyss. I didn't even know the layers of the Abyss. I guess I knew about the demon web pits, but I didn't know that each layer had a different name. Interesting. To destroy it, it can either be destroyed or repaired by journeying to Mount Celestia and obtaining a tear from the eternally serene god Rao. One way to make their emotionless god cry would be to reunite Rao with his spirit, with the spirit of his first worshipper, who sought revelations beyond the multiverse long ago. The crook dissolves if immersed in the god's tear for a year and a day. If washed in the tear daily for 30 days, the crook loses its failing matrix property. Oh, so there you go. Obviously, not something you could easily do in Out of the Abyss, but still interesting. That was like a nice holy sort of artifact. All right, then the one that everybody wants to know about, the Demonomicon of Iggwilv. Again, we obtained this in my Rod of Seven Parts campaign. It had interesting consequences, and we'll get to that. All right, so 2 minor beneficial, 1 minor detrimental, 1 major detrimental. Has 8 charges, gets a D8 back at dawn, and you can cast. You can use an action to cast Tasha's Hideous Laughter from it for free, or expend 1 or more of its charges to do one of the following with a save DC of 20. Magic Circle for 1, Magic Jar for 3, Planar Ally for 3, Planar Binding for 2, Plane Shift to the Layers of the Abyss only for 3, and Summon Fiend for 3. Well, that's one of the ones in Tasha's Cauldron. You can reference it whenever you make an intelligence check to discern information about demons, or a survival check related to the Abyss. You add double your proficiency bonus to that check. While carrying the book, you can make a damage roll for a spell against a fiend. You use the maximum possible result instead of rolling. While carrying the book, you can cast the Magic Circle spell naming only fiends, or the Planar Binding spell targeting a fiend. The spell is cast at 9th level, regardless of what level slot you used. Additionally, the fiend has disadvantage on the saving throw against that spell. And then this is the part I was telling you about, the containment feature. The first 10 pages are blank. As an action while holding the book, you can target a fiend that you can see is trapped within a magic circle. You must succeed on a DC 20 Charisma saving throw with disadvantage, or become trapped within one of the Demonomicon's empty blank pages, which filled with writing detailing the trapped creature's widely known name and depravities. Once used, this action can't be used again until the next dawn. However, here's the interesting part. When you finish a long rest, if you and the Demonomicon are on the same plane of existence, the trapped creature of the highest challenge rating within the book can attempt to possess you. You must make a DC 20 Charisma saving throw. On a failure, you are possessed by the creature, which controls you like a puppet. The possessing creature can release you as an action, appearing in the closest unoccupied space. On a successful save, the fiend can't try to possess you again for 7 days. When the tome is discovered, it has 1d4 fiends occupying its pages, typically an assortment of demons. And then to destroy it, the 6 different demon lords must each tear out a 1/6 of the book's pages. If this occurs, the pages reappear after 24 hours, so you need to visit 6 demon lords in 24 hours. Before all those hours pass, anyone who opens the book's remaining binding is transported to a nascent layer of the Abyss that lies hidden within the book. At the heart of this deadly semi-sentient domain lies a long-lost artifact, Fraz Urblu's staff. Fraz Urblu being one of the demon lords. If the staff is dragged from the pocket plane, the tome is reduced to a mundane and quite out-of-date copy of the Tome of Zix, the work that served as the foundation for the Demonomicon. Once the staff emerges, the demon lord Fraz Urblu instantly knows. So that's another possible campaign hook for you. Yeah, the whole possession thing definitely got to us because our rogue was possessed. However, interesting fact, you could just put the Demonomicon. Obviously, I'm assuming that's not a thing you're going to know happens, because that would kind of ruin the fun of it. But if you were to put it into a bag of holding, let's say, that technically puts it on a different plane of existence than you. So that would let you get around it would just basically give you the containment feature without any of the side effects, as long as you don't long rest with it outside of the bag of holding. All right, then we have Lubba's, I think it's pronounced Lubba, that sounds like it, Tarokka of Souls. So this is the, we know the Tarokka deck exists, right? The Tarokka deck is very famously used in Curse of Strahd for fortune-telling purposes by Madame Ava. This is the Tarokka deck as an artifact, though, that has a bunch of other properties. I'll be honest, I actually have not read this one, so we're going to read through it together for the first time. Created by a figure of Vistani legend, Lubba's Tarokka of Souls shaped the destiny of countless heroes, which is accurate, right? Mother Lubba managed to ensnare beings of pure evil amid the strands of fate, imprisoning them within her Tarokka deck. Like all Tarokka decks, it is lavishly illustrated, a collection of 54 cards comprising the 14 cards of the high deck and the 40 other cards divided into 4 suits: coins, glyphs, stars, and swords. Gives you 2 minor detrimental properties and 2 minor beneficial properties. While holding it, you can cast the following spells with a save DC of 18. Comprehend languages, detect evil and good, detect magic, detect poison and disease, locate object, or scrying once per long rest on those spells. Again, divination stuff makes sense. While holding it, you automatically succeed on Constitution saving throws made to maintain your concentration on divination spells. As an action, you can draw a card from the deck and twist the fortune of another creature you can see within 15 feet, choosing one of the following effects. Wheel, the creature has advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws for the next hour, or woe, disadvantage on the same for the next hour. It can be used in this way twice, and you regain all uses at the dawn. Then we have Prisoners of Fate. Whenever you use the Twist of Fate property, the one we just discussed, there's a chance that one of the souls trapped in the deck escapes. Roll a d100, consult the souls of the Tarokka table. If you roll one of the high cards, the soul associated with it escapes. You can find the statistics in the monster manual. If you roll a soul that has already escaped, roll again. So if you roll a 15 to 100 on your D100 on your percentile roll, nothing happens. But if you roll a 1 to 14, encompassing those high cards, it releases one of the following. And we can see here: Flame Skull, Wraith, Banshee, Vampire, Mummy, Death Knight, Ghost, Mummy Lord, another Ghost, Mummy, Wraith, Vampire Spawn, Vampire, Vampire Spawn. Depending on when you get this, if you were even to encounter this at all, some of these might not really be an issue. I think the Death Knight is probably the scariest one on there in my mind, although Wraiths can do some solid damage, as can Banshees, depending on how people roll. Vampires can be deadly, but I feel like radiant damage is a lot more common now. You might say like Mummy and Mummy Lords, but that vulnerability to fire goes a long way to kill them real quick in most parties. The released soul appears at a random location within 10 d10 miles of you and terrorizes the living. Until the released soul is destroyed, it gains the benefit of a wheel from the deck's Twist of Fate property, and both you and the original target of the Twist of Fate suffer the effect of woe. Okay. Interesting. Shuffling Fate. If you go 7 days without using the Twist of Fate property, your attunement to it ends, and you can't attune to it again until after another creature uses Twist of Fate on you. Oh, so you have to use it. That's interesting. Then to destroy it, it can only be destroyed if all 14 souls within are released and destroyed. This reveals a 15th soul, a Lich, that inhabits the Nether card, which appears only when the 14 souls are defeated. If this ancient entity is destroyed, the Nether card vanishes and the deck becomes a normal Tarokka deck with no special properties, but it includes a new card of the DM's design. That's really cool. That could also be an interesting concept to be like, oh, you have a Tarokka deck, but that's weird. There's 55 cards in it. What's that about? And you gotta go into that. Or maybe one of the cards is not normal. And then we have a little bit here about Mother Lubba and the Vistani. I think this is the fact that we're getting this is foreshadowing for this potential, whether it be realm hopping or Vistani book we're gonna get in 2021. I don't know. All right, moving on to the next artifact on the list is the Mighty Servant of Leuk-O. Again, I know this is like a legendary thing from old D&D, but I'm just not familiar. Named for the warlord who infamously employed it, the Mighty Servant of Leuk-O is a fantastically powerful 10-foot-tall machine that turns into an animate construct when piloted. It's a mech suit, right? You can kind of see what it looks like. The servant contains enough space for a ton of cargo and a crew compartment within from which up to 2 medium creatures can control it and potentially execute a spree of unstoppable destruction. This, I think, it says Barrier Peaks in Oerth, so this is Greyhawk, and the supposedly related device known as the Machine of Lum... Oh, wait. Tales of the Servant's origins involve more conjecture than fact, often referring to the otherworldly being, Barrier Peaks of Oerth, and the supposedly related device known as the Machine of Lum the Mad. The best details on the device's origin and operation can be found in the Mind of Metal, a tome of Artificer's secrets that connects the device to the traditions of the lost Ulman Empire, or Ulman people, rather, which was written by Lum the Mad several times over granddaughter Lum the Maestro, while she constructed the long disassembled Mighty Servant of Leuk-O. Okay. 2 creatures can be attuned to it at a time. If a third tries, nothing happens. The servant's controls are accessed by a hatch in its upper back. Attuning to the artifact requires 2 hours, which can be undertaken as part of a long rest, during which time you must be inside the servant interacting with its controls. While crew members are attuning themselves, any creature or structure outside and within 50 feet of the servant has a 25% chance of being accidentally targeted by one of its destructive fist attacks during the attunement. The process must be undergone every time a creature attunes itself to the artifact. Alright, controlling it. While any creature are attuned to it, attuned creatures can open the hatch as easily as any other door. Other creatures can't open it without a successful DC 15 Dex check using Thieves' Tools. A knock spell cast on the hatch also opens it until the start of the caster's next turn. The creature can enter or exit through the hatch by spending 10 feet of movement. Those inside have total cover from effects outside of it. While you're inside the servant, you can command it by using the controls. During your turn, you can command it in the following ways. Open or close the hatch for no action once a turn. Move it up to its speed for no action. As an action, command the servant to take one of its action in its stat block. When a creature provokes an attack of opportunity from the servant, you can use your reaction to command the servant to make a destructive fist attack against that creature. Well, there are no attuned creatures inside the servant is an inert object. Okay. Ghost in the Machine. Upon his death, the soul of the mighty warlord Leuk-O was drawn into the artifact and has become its animating force. The servant has been known to attack or move on its own accord, particularly if doing so will cause destruction. Once every 24 hours, the servant at the DM's discretion takes one action while uncrewed. If the servant loses half of its hit points or more, each creature attuned to it must make a wisdom saving throw of DC 20 or be charmed for 24 hours. While charmed in this way, the creature goes on a destructive spree, seeking to destroy structures and attacking any unattuned creatures within sight. Oof. Starting with those threatening the artifact. It has a self-destruct mode, because of course it does. By inputting a specific sequence, a series of lever pulls and button presses, you can cause it to explode. The self-destruct code is not revealed to crew members when they attune to the artifact. If the code is discovered, the DM determines how. It requires 2 attuned crew members to be inside the servant and spend their actions on 3 consecutive rounds performing the command. Should the crew members begin the process of entering the code, though, the servant uses its Ghost in the Machine property and turns the crew members against each other. If the crew members successfully implement the code, at the end of the 3rd round, the servant explodes. Every creature in a 100-foot radius centered on the servant must make a DC 25 Dex check. On a failure, they take 25d6 force damage, 25d6 lightning damage, and 25d6 thunder damage. On a successful save, a creature takes half as much damage. Objects and structures in the area take triple damage. Creatures inside the servant are slain instantly and leave behind no remains. This does not destroy the servant permanently. Rather, 2d6 liters, its parts, left arm, right leg, lower torso, and upper torso drop from the sky in random places within 1,000 miles of the explosion. If brought within 5 feet of one another, the pieces reconnect and reform the servant. That, again, a very interesting plot point for a campaign. Whether it be the campaign starts off with a massive explosion and then people start finding these parts over time, or, something like that. To destroy it, it can be destroyed in 2 ways. After it is self-destructed, its disconnected pieces can be melted down in one of the forged temples of its ancient Ulman creators. Alternatively, if the servant strikes the machine of Lum the Mad, both artifacts explode in an eruption that is 3 times the size and 3 times the damage as the servant's self-destruction property. God, 75d6 3 times over, if I'm understanding that correctly? Or maybe you just add up all the damage and then multiply it by 3, rather than rolling the different numbers. I don't know. And let's take a look at its stat block as well, because that's the big thing, right? So here it is. Also, funnily enough, it is technically a challenge rating 0 creature, which might make this the strongest challenge rating 0 creature in existence. AC of 22, 310 hit points. Its stats are bananas: 30, 14, 20, 1, 14, 10. It is proficient in Wisdom and Charisma saving throws, resistant to piercing and slashing damage. That's just all piercing and slashing. And then immune to acid, bludgeoning, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, and radiant damage. God damn. Thunder damage, I guess, is your move to destroy this thing. Because that's not resistant to thunder damage in any way. So I guess that's how you break it down. I'm trying to see. I don't see any other kinds of damage that really jumps out at me. Wow, that's crazy. Immune to blinded, charmed, deafened, exhausted, frightened, grappled, incapacitated, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, restrained, and stunned and unconscious, with blind sight out to 120 feet. It has immutable existence, which is similar to immutable form. It is immune to any spell that would alter its form or send it to another plane of existence. It has advantage on saving throws against spells and magic effects. Spell attacks made against it have disadvantage. It regains 10 hit points at the start of its turn. If reduced to 0 hit points, this doesn't function until an attuned creature spends 24 hours repairing it, or until it is subjected to lightning damage. Its long jump is 50 feet, and its high jump is 25 feet with or without a running start, and it doesn't require air, food, drink, or sleep. So we've heard a lot about the Destructive Fist feature. This is a 10-foot reach or 120-foot range, depending. Plus 17 to hit and does 40, 12, plus 10 force damage. If it is an object, it takes triple damage. And then its Crushing Leap ability. If the servant jumps at least 25 feet as part of its movement, it has 60 feet of movement, so that is allowed. If the servant jumps at least 25 feet as part of its movement, it can then use its action to land on its feet in a space that contains one or more other creatures. Each of those creatures is pushed to an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the servant and must make a DC 25 Dex saving throw. On a failure, taking 40-12 bludgeoning damage and being knocked prone. So I could definitely see how this could allow you to cause a ton of destruction, especially due to the severe limited amount of things that can actually affect it. That's pretty crazy. All right, and then I think it's the last artifact of the book. Yeah, it's the Teeth of Dahlver-Nar. This is a long one, folks, so bear with me. All right, we can obviously see the dragon here, right? These are a collection of teeth, each suggestive of a wildly different origins and made of various materials. The collection rests within a leather pouch stitched with images of heroes and whimsical creatures. Where the teeth fall, they bring legends to life. While you are holding the pouch, you can use an action to draw a tooth. Roll on the tooth table to determine which one you draw, and you can either sew the tooth or implant it. Both are described later on. If you don't sew or implant a tooth, roll a die at the end of your turn. On an even number, it vanishes, and creatures appear as if you had sewed the tooth, but they are hostile to you and your allies. On an odd number, it replaces one of your own teeth as if you implanted it, potentially replacing another implanted tooth. Each tooth can only be used once. Track which teeth have been used. If a tooth's result is rolled after it's been used, you draw the next lowest unused tooth on the table. So sewing the teeth. To sew the tooth, you place it in the ground in an unoccupied space within your reach, or throw it into an unoccupied space within 10 feet of you in a body of water that is less than 50 feet wide and 50 feet long. Upon doing so, it burrows into the ground and vanishes, leaving no hole behind, or it vanishes into the water. The creature noted in the creature's summoned column appear in an unoccupied space as close to where the tooth was sewn as possible. The creatures are allies to you, which is huge, and speak all languages you speak and linger for 10 minutes before disappearing unless otherwise noted. So this is obviously, for some of it, it could be a means to get information. If you're trying to pull information, we'll talk in a little bit about what they each are, or a very, very powerful combat-related ally, because they last for 10 minutes, so you could definitely use that to your advantage. It does say place unoccupied space within 10 feet of you in a body of water at least 50 feet. I was thinking if it had to only be, so never mind. Or you can implant said tooth. You place it in your mouth, whereupon one of your teeth falls out and the tooth takes its place, resizing to fit in your mouth. Once the tooth is implanted, you gain the effect noted in the implanted effect column. The tooth can't be removed while you are attuned to the teeth, and you can't voluntarily end your attunement to them. If removed after your death, the tooth vanishes. You can have a maximum number of teeth implanted at one time equal to 1 plus your constitution modifier. If you try to implant more teeth, the newly implanted tooth replaces one of the previous teeth determined randomly. The replaced tooth vanishes, and you lose the implanted effect. Once all teeth have vanished, the pouch also vanishes. The pouch with all the teeth then appears in a random destination, which could be on a different world on the material plane. Destroying the teeth, each tooth must be destroyed individually by sewing it in an area where the tooth's story originated, with its intention to destroy it. When planted in this way, creatures summoned are not friendly to you and do not vanish. Some of the creatures summoned merely head off in search of home, while others act as their tails dictate. In either case, the tooth is gone forever. So first up is the Staring Cats of Dahlver-Nar, which is an ivory cat molar. It summons 9 cats, like actual just house cats. Or if you implant it, it has 8 charges. As an action, you can expend 1 charge to cast the Revivify spell from the tooth. If you are dead at the start of your turn, the tooth expends 1 charge and casts Revivify on you, right? 9 lives, your cat, right? Dougle's Surprising Day. This is a human molar. You summon 1 commoner. Whenever you finish a long rest, if you implant it, the tooth casts Sanctuary DC 18 on you. That lasts for 24 hours or until you break it. That's way better than just summoning a random commoner, I feel like. The Golden Age of Dakan, a golden goblin bicuspid, summoning 10 goblins and 1 goblin boss. When you are hit by an attack and an ally is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to cause them to be hit instead. Goblin boss abilities here. You can't use this reaction until you finish a short or long rest. The Mill Road Murders, a halfling canine, 3 green hags, and a coven. When you damage a target that hasn't taken a turn in combat, the target takes an extra 3d6 slashing damage from ghostly blades. Remember, if you summon them for sewing them, they're there to help you for 10 minutes. So 3 green hags might be able to provide you spellcasting services, possibly some information, depending. Dooms of the Malfegi. This is a lizard folk fang. Which is 1 lizard folk queen and 4 lizard folk. You gain reptilian scales, granting you a +2 to your AC. Additionally, when you finish a long rest, you must succeed on a DC 15 con save or gain a level of exhaustion. That's kind of rough, but hey, +2 AC. The Stable Hands Secret, a sweet-tasting humanoid canine, 2 incubi. When you make a charisma check against a humanoid, you can roll a d10 and add the number rolled as a bonus to the result. The creature then becomes hostile to you at the next dawn. The Donkey's Dream, a rainbow-colored donkey molar which summons a unicorn, which is awesome. The tooth has 3 charges. As an action, you can expend 1 charge to touch a creature. The target regains 2d8 plus 2 hit points, and all diseases and poisons affecting them are removed. When you use this action, a shimmering image of a unicorn's horn appears until the end of your turn, sprouting from your forehead. It regains all expended uses daily at dawn, and you gain the flaw, when I see wickedness in action, I must oppose it. I was going to say, that seems pretty powerful until we got to the end there. There is a downside, sort of. Beyond the Rock of Brawl, a silver Mind Flayer tooth summons 2 Mind Flayers. Or you gain telepathy out to 120 feet. You can cast the Detect Thoughts spell at will, requiring no components, and have advantage on on insight and perception checks from constant whispers of memories and nearby minds. The Disappearances of Half Hollow, a Vomarine tooth of a large toad. Summons 4 giant toads. Your long jump is 30 feet and your high jump is 15 feet with or without a running start. Legendary of Phantoms and Ghosts, an obsidian human molar. Summons a giant octopus, a mage, and a specter. As an action, you can use the tooth to cast the Ivar's Black Tentacle spell, DC 18, once until the next dawn. I'm not sure if any of these are really... I haven't come across any that seem to me to be like very clear references to anything, but I'm sure there's some like history or references here. The Thousand Deaths of Jander Sunstar, a yellowed vampire fang, which summons a vampire. You can make a bite attack as an unarmed strike. It deals a d6 damage plus 3d6 necrotic damage, and you regain a number of hit points equal to the necrotic damage dealt. But while you're in sunlight, you can't regain hit points. Nightmares of Kagash, a beholder tooth, summons a beholder. As an action, you can cast the Eye Bite spell from the tooth once until the next dawn. However, when you finish a long rest, roll a d20. On a 20, an aberration chosen by the DM appears within 30 feet of you and attacks you. We have 3 Bridges to the Sky. An Oni Fang summons 3 Oni. You gain a fly speed of 30 feet and can use the tooth to cast the Detect Magic spell at will. While you are tuned to fewer than 3 magic items, you gain 1 level of exhaustion that can't be removed until you are tuned to 3 or more magic items. The Claws of Dragotha. This is a translucent fang, is an adult red Dracolich. So again, for 10 minutes, you have an adult red Dracolich on your side. You can use the tooth to cast the Create Undead spell once until the next dawn. Each time you create an undead creature using the tooth, a skeleton, zombie, or ghoul also appears at a random location within 5 miles of you, searching for the living to kill. A humanoid killed by these undead rises as the same type of undead at the next midnight. We have the Ashes of the Ages and Eternal Fire. This is a Jade Humanoid Tooth. We summon one of each type of genie, a Dao, a Jinni, and a Freedy, and a Marid. You can use this tooth to cast Counterspell at 9th level. Once you use this property, it can't be used until the next dawn. Whenever you finish a long rest, if you haven't used the tooth to counter a spell since your last long rest, your hit point maximum is reduced by 2d10. If you reduces your hit points to 0, you die. We have the Daughters of Bel. This is a Pit Fiend Fang. Summons a Pit Fiend, again, on your side. You can use the tooth to cast Dominate Monster, DC 18. Once until the next dawn, you smell strongly of burning sulfur. See, some of these are like super, like I feel like you would want to implant them. Like that one is a free once a day Dominate Monster, but like you smell a little funky. I'll take it rather than like I might lose all of my hit points. Why the Sky Screams, a Blue Dragon Fang, which is a 1 ancient blue dragon on your side. And that one gives you immunity to lightning damage, but vulnerability to thunder damage. We have the Last Tarrasque, which is a Tarrasque Tooth. 1 Tarrasque, however, it ignores you and your commands, appears for 1d4 rounds, and then vanishes. But if you implant it, you deal double damage to objects and structures. If you take 20 or more damage in 1 turn, you must succeed on a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw, or spend your next turn in a Murderous Fury. During this rage, you must use your action to make an unarmed strike against a creature that damaged you, or a random creature that you can see if you weren't damaged by a creature, moving as close as you can to the target if necessary. In Sendax's Tooth, this is a Red Dragon Fang. This summons a one ancient red dragon. You get immunity to fire damage, and as an action, you can exhale a 90-foot cone of fire. Each creature must make a DC 24 dexterity saving throw, taking 26 d6 fire damage on a failed save or half on a success. After using the breath weapon, you gain 2 levels of exhaustion. See, that one's great because it's immunity to fire all the time. And then if you want to use your big gun, your 90-foot cone breath weapon, you might take some exhaustion, but I'm okay with that. And then lastly, we have Dahlver-Nar's Tooth, which summons a priest. As an action, you can call on the divine force to come to your aid, describe the assistance you seek, and the DM decides the nature of the intervention. The effect of any cleric spell would be appropriate. Once this property is used, it can't be used again for 7 days. This is basically, seems like it will always work, cleric's version of the divine intervention class feature. Just you have it, and it will work as long as you cast it and wait every 7 days. And that is it. That is all of the artifacts in Tasha's Cauldron of everything. See, I told you this was going to be a long one. So looking at this, ones that I find the most interesting, I don't know, I think the Teeth of Dahlver-Nar definitely does it for me. I think that's the coolest one in my opinion. I'm curious what you guys think though. Which is your, if we zoom in on these, which is your favorite artifact that we've discussed here today? Like I said, I think a lot of these have really great options for like campaign hooks or even a whole campaign. I think the Mighty Servant of Leuk-O, like exploding to kick off the campaign, or like, I don't know, to me it seems like it would be a very like video game trope where like you start into the world and you're in like the pre-world where everything's nice and happy-go-lucky and green and then everything, and then there's just a massive explosion and like it freaks everybody out. Maybe it takes out a big center of town or some high, order or something, and then like that's the kickoff for the campaign. It also gives me very much like a Judge from Buffy the Vampire Slayer vibe where you're trying to reassemble all the pieces. So maybe you guys are trying to destroy it. Maybe there's a villain out there who's trying to reassemble it. And obviously, as what we've seen, they'll be near indestructible and near unbeatable once they assemble the entire thing. So it's a race to the finish, who can get all the pieces first, either to use it. And then maybe that, I could inject a degree of uncertainty into the party. Do we assemble this thing and then use it for ourselves to beat down whatever bad force there is? Or do we try to find pieces and start melting them down so that no one can use it again? I think that would be a pretty cool one. Again, the Tarokka of Souls, also an interesting one, especially you could introduce that one into Curse of Strahd if you wanted to inject a little more flavor into your Curse of Strahd game, although it might be that one since it does seem to have like true divine powers, at least Madame Eva does. Or again, like you find the one with the extra new card, and that's like, what does that mean? Oh, weird, that was a thing, and like maybe that's just like a fun fluff trinket kind of a thing that people have, or maybe it leads to something deeper. So anyway, folks, thank you all so much for sticking with me through this video. Now that we've covered all of the magic items, we're kind of in like the end game now when it comes to what we're doing for Tasha's Cauldron. So if I'm looking at the list of stuff that's left, I want to touch on the group patrons, right? Because I think that's actually a really cool concept, and I've been toying with it for future campaigns for my players. And then we'll kind of get into the last section of Dungeon Master's tools, which again will be Session 0, the sidekicks, talking to monsters, the supernatural regions, the magical phenomena, the natural hazards, and then the puzzles. And that'll pretty much be it. Then I have, I'll probably do like a final thoughts on this. I have a couple of videos. I have a video planned on why I think this book is the way it is, and some commentary on a couple things. Then a video on like what's the weirdest, most broken, stupid thing in the book. And then we'll move on to regularly scheduled Nerd Immersion content. My goal is to wrap this entire book up by the end of the year because I just want to focus on 2021 on new stuff, as well as being able to churn out more top 10s and other things like that in the midst of all the other projects that I have going on. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.